Welcome back, everybody. If you're new to the channel, my name is Dr. Jason Hooper, Doctor of Physical Therapy and Orthopedic Clinical Specialist. In today's video, we're going to do a follow-up on our bicep talk from last time, but we're going to talk about the proximal bicep issue, which is a shoulder issue. So in this video, we're going to talk about the biomechanics of this issue. We're going to talk about testing, some treatment options, and a little bit of differential diagnosis so we know what else could be going on with this issue. All right, so the reason we're going to talk about the biomechanics of this issue right off the bat are because that's generally what causes this irritation of the long head of the biceps. So when we look at the mechanics of the shoulder, especially when we look at like overhead motions or reaching overhead, we have two components really. So the humerus of the shoulder itself, as it elevates, it kind of rotates in that socket. We also get an upward elevation of the scapula. So those two motions combined are what allow us to reach our arm up overhead. Now, what can happen, you can see in this little space here, we have basically what I like to call the roof of the shoulder, and then this is the ball and socket of the shoulder. So as we elevate overhead, you can see even just this muscle, this is your supraspinatus, is getting kind of pushed into that ridge. Now, if we just purely had this rotation and we didn't have any upward movement of the shoulder blade, that's going to just run into that space over and over again and cause an irritation. Now, if we look in here, we can see what structures run underneath that roof. So we have that supraspinatus muscle, we have our subscapularis muscle, and then we have this representing the tendon of the long head of the biceps running through here as well. So those are some of the common structures that can get trapped underneath the shoulder. Now we talk about that a lot as well in our shoulder impingement video, so it's a good reference to look for if you want more information about that as well. So in addition to the important mechanics of that upward rotation and that lifting overhead of the shoulder, there's also a big one that comes into play with regards to our posture. So a lot of times when we have that really kind of forward posture or those rounded shoulders, what you'll get oftentimes is kind of a forward or an anterior translation of this humerus. So the ball of the shoulder starts to come a little bit further forward. So you can even see here, if I try and pull that forward, it immediately is moving and creating some pressure on these structures in the front of the shoulder. So the subscap can be involved in that, but also so can the long head of the biceps tendon. So what can happen if you have like bad posture, you're constantly rounded, you're never doing any exercises to keep your chest open, or when you're climbing and you don't practice that scapular retraction, that shoulder can be in this forward position, which is going to place more strain and stress on the long head of that biceps. So our posture and our mechanics and awareness of positioning while we're climbing is also really important to consider if you have this long head of the biceps irritation. So symptoms for this issue can present in a number of different ways based upon what might be your biomechanical issues. If your shoulder is sitting more forward, you can have other complications than if it's just an upward elevation issue. So you most commonly will get obviously pain in the front of the shoulder, but you may also get pain on the outside of the shoulder or even the back of the shoulder. If the issue is that shoulder coming too far forward, the muscles in the back, that infraspinatus, are going to be working way harder, so you may get more pain there. If it's that issue with that upward elevation, you may have other structures involved, like we pointed out, like the supraspinatus, so you may get pain in the outside of the shoulder. So those symptoms can be pretty broad, but we will notice that anterior shoulder pain, which can radiate down the arm. So to test this issue, we'll start with some of the less stressful tests and work our way up with that. So some of these may be basic, they may not reproduce your symptoms, but if the basic ones reproduce your symptoms, you probably shouldn't go further and you might need to get it checked out professionally. So first, you should simply have full range of motion. So if you notice that you can't even extend your elbow fully, that's not a great sign. Or if you have pain elevating and you can't lift up all the way overhead, that's not great either. Now, if you have a little bit of pain, but it's not so much where you can go through that full range of motion, that's okay. It's more so if it stops you from completing the range at either the elbow or the shoulder. So if you can go through that range of motion with relative ease, we want to test our strength out next. We'll start with more basic strength testing, so we don't want to just bias the long head of the bicep right away. So we start with the thumbs up position, and we're resisting elbow flexion. So we're resisting this motion pulling in. If you can perform that without pain, then you go to the palms up position. This supinated position of the shoulder will put more load on the long head of the biceps, so it can help kind of differentiate other things out. Now, if the strength testing is fine in those positions, we'll go into our special testing. All right, so for the special tests, we need a buddy for these. So Emil, get over here. All right, so we got Emil here. He's gonna help me do these next two tests. The first one is called the speeds test. So the starting position for this is gonna be with your shoulder straight ahead of you at 90 degrees with your palm up and your elbow straight. Now it's important to keep your elbow straight throughout the motion. So Emil's gonna apply some pressure to my forearm here. Now he's pushing down, but I'm fighting against him. So I create some contraction and that really biases the long head of the biceps. If you have pain at any point of that, you want to stop the test. You don't need to just aggravate your symptoms more. But again, that's palm up, elbow straight, fighting that resistance. So he's trying to push me down as I fight up against him. The second test that we'll do is called the Jurgensen's test. So we basically start off by going in this like arm wrestling position. I want my arm in this about 90 degrees of bent elbow and towards my side. Now, what the motion we're gonna be doing is like we're coming through here, but he's gonna be resisting it. So it's like arm wrestling, but I'm trying to pin myself. So he's not allowing me to go through that, and I'm looking to see if I have any pain in the front of my shoulder. So those are two tests that you can do with a buddy's help to see if you have this pathology. Okay, so now to the best part, the treatment. So what do we do to help this out? We're gonna break it down into the 4 different sections and go through some details for each one of those. So first, stretching. Okay, so like we mentioned earlier, where that humerus can be anterior translated or just the shoulders are forward, we want to kind of reverse that and get those mechanics changed. So we got to open the chest up. So a lot of that's going to be done with like stretching the pecs or getting a light bicep stretch. I always suggest doing it like in a doorway with the hands low, medium, and high, and kind of you can do all 3 of them or do what feels the most restricted to you. If you've had this forward rounded shoulder position for a long time, you may actually also need to stretch the posterior cuff or the posterior capsule of the shoulder, which can be accomplished with the kind of basic cross-body stretch here. When you do this stretch, you should feel a little bit of pull or stretch in the back of the shoulder, and it seems kind of ironic because you're pulling it into the opposite position, but when that posterior capsule gets tight, it can become limited and won't let your shoulders sink further back. So pec stretching to open it up, and that cross-body stretch to stretch that posterior capsule. Okay, so for number 2, we're gonna look at strengthening. Now, we mentioned that this can be an upward rotation problem where the shoulder isn't getting that good clearance from the roof as we're upwardly rotating our shoulder. So we have to look at, in particular, our mid-trap, our lower trap, and the strength of our serratus anterior. So we have videos on all of those guys, but that basic awareness is the mid-trap is going to be that scapular retraction or pulling the shoulder blade backwards in this about 90-degree position. The lower trap is going to be anything above that, and our serratus is that pushing muscle. So if you have weakness or bad motor control in any of those positions, then you want to look back at our other videos that talk about strengthening for those muscle groups. Okay, third, technique. So we mentioned like the forward shoulders, we mentioned the upward rotation and needing strengthening. Now you have to be able to apply those to your climbing. So pay attention. If you're even just on slab and you're always like just collapsed in your shoulders, work on that awareness of creating your scapular retraction and that back engagement, and work on after you're done climbing too, not just sitting and resting in this terrible slouch position. So work on your awareness and on that technique while you're climbing to keep your back engaged. It will help with both of those aspects so you're not just sliding forward with the shoulder, and so you're getting that proper upward rotation. All right, for the last part, it also just started raining, so it might be a little bit of background noise, but we want to talk about just like obviously overuse. So if you like to climb like 4 times a week and Monday, Wednesday, and Friday are all bicep days, just pay attention to like some overuse with these muscles. If you're doing a lot of cave climbing and not mixing that training up with your rest, you may be getting some overuse, but those main three are going to be the ones you're going to want to pay attention to for healing and treating this issue. Bonus time. All right, we're going to talk about some differential diagnosis. So basically we're looking at if this is one thing or if it's possibly something else. Now, because of the long head of the biceps anatomy and this fact that it attaches actually into the labrum of the shoulder, we have to rule out the possibility of having a labral tear. So the way we do that is with this really cool test called the biceps load test 1 and 2. Now you can do this with a friend, but you don't have to. Sorry, Emil. But what you do is pretty simple. The first one you do is you just put your palm on top of your head and you pull down. Now slowly increase, you pull harder and harder and harder. Don't just yank on it right off the bat. The second part of the test is to do it with the fist and the thumb down on top of your head. If both of those tests are painful, my recommendation is to go see a specialist. Now, keep in mind, if you have pain just getting into this position, then you may have some impingement or other things causing it, so you need to kind of pay attention to if that's the same symptom you feel when you pull down or if it's just getting into that position. So if you do have pain to both of those, there is a really high chance that you have that labral tear and you need to get in to see a specialist. If both of those are negative, then there's a better chance you do not, and you can say that, hey, this is probably my long head of the biceps that's giving me this pain. All right, I hope you all found this video informative. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe. And just one last note, just poking at the front of the shoulder and having pain does not mean you have long head of the biceps irritation. It's just a sensitive spot on almost all of us. So that doesn't mean it. You gotta do these other tests as well. And that's when I don't know what I'm supposed to say. So that's our video for today. Until next time, train, climb, sand, repeat.
All right, give me some words.
Raindrops falling on my head. Hello and welcome to the evening news. Unique, New York. The arsonist had small feet. What did you learn that on? It's actually kind of hard. Red leather.
That one in theater school.
Red leather, yellow leather, red, yellow leather, red. I got that ROMS, bro. That rapid onset muscle soreness.
Never heard anyone use that before.
I think I'm the only one that does. And why feeling so ROM is so right. So this is the shoulder. Try. To try and get the shoulder in a, dang it. I liked it, but then I lost it. Was it good? Mm-hmm. Okay. So what we're doing when we're climbing with the upward rotation, no. Gross, disgusting. Bonus time. So, why did I go that one? That's easy. Bonus time. Bonus time.
Instead of pathology, maybe say just like different issues or something.
No, bro. I want to sound smart. If you liked it, go ahead and hit that like button. Obviously, if you liked it, hit the like button. If you didn't know already, the brain named itself. Think about it.
Oh, hey, you're still here. Jason, they're still watching.
Oh. Heyo.
Dude, say something cool so they like the videos and subscribe for more awesome content.
Like and subscribe for more super sweet vids, y'all.
So lame, dude. So lame.
I thought it was pretty good.